Okay, we are now live on YouTube. I'm going to see who's with us today.
It looks like we have one individual calling in.
This is Jim Barrett.
Afternoon, Jim.
Mr. Chair, I believe we do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you all very much for joining us today on this cool but very, very nice Thursday on November the 19th and my mom's birthday. Folks, what we're going to start off with officially is with a roll call. Please answer by either saying aye or here when Nicole calls your name.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to start with Town of Ashland, Mr. Martin.
Present.
Chesterfield County, Ms. Beals.
Here.
Mr. Richwine. And he might be on the phone trying to get in. We'll circle back. Mr. Jordan. Goochland County, Mr. Basham.
Here.
Hanover County, Mr. Rasnick. Henrico County, Mr. Barrett.
Here.
Miss Lancaster.
Here.
New Kent County, Miss Guthrie.
Here.
Mr. Moyer. Powhatan County, Mr. Fletcher. Mr. Sadler. City of Richmond, Miss Erickson. Mr. Steele. Mr. Barnhart. Mr. Hill. Chamber RVA, Mr. Easter.
Here.
Mr. Mayman. NAACP, Mr. Minor. Mr. Johnson. League of Women Voters, Ms. Cowles.
Coles. Here.
Coles, thank you. Ms. Crutchfield. Raba, Mr. Vi. I think I saw Mr. Vi. Mr. Vi, are you?
Champ Burnley's on.
Yeah, Bud's supposed to be on, but I'm here. Bud was going to dial in.
Bud is here.
Thanks,
I
guys.
see him. He's muted.
All right, thank you. Virginia Association of Railway Patrons, Mr. Testerman. Virginia Conservation Network, Mr. Gordon. Mr. Fisher. And VCU, Mr. Leonard.
Present.
Thank you. That concludes the roll call for attendance, and I can certify that we do have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Folks, we can get through a little bit quicker if this is possible. What I'd like to say, does anybody see anything that needs to be changed on today's agenda? Hearing none. Nicole, do you see anything in the chat?
I do not, Mr. Chair, and we did not receive any comments.
Okay, the thing is, folks, we can now say that that is approved by acclamation, hearing no additions. The next thing, which if anybody has anything that they see that needs to be changed, the approval of the September 17th minutes can also be done the same way, unless someone sees something that needs to be changed. If you do, please speak up now. Hearing none, I assume that we are approved through acclamation. Our next piece on the agenda is open public comment period. I didn't see anybody on the things up at the top, but do you see anybody there, Nicole?
I do not, sir.
Well, hearing none, we can move on to the CTAC Chairman's report. Champ, do you mind unmuting your speaker for a brief moment?
Give me a second.
Yeah, you're there. I hear you.
Oh, okay, I'm sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to let everyone know. Yeah, basically, we have some sorrowful news. Is that Bud Vi's wife passed away just a few weeks ago. Of course, Champ knows that. It was passed along to me. Bud's feeling a little, but he may have dialed in, but I also understand that Bud's feeling quite poorly himself. And Champ, I don't know if you wish to expand on that or anything, or, if folks want to get in touch with him, you might give how they can reach him.
All right. Well, I tell you, Bud's on the line there, and I will. I'll be glad to forward his address. But Bud, you want to give out your phone number or an address and have people get in touch with you?
Bud's on video.
Yeah, Bud. If you click on that red microphone, you can unmute yourself, Bud. Are you there? There we go. You see a little red microphone, Bud? Should be on your picture. We can't. What? I think you're still muted, Bud. Hey, Bud, or hey, Bob, can you unmute him with?
I don't know if I can't. Can Nicole? Can you unmute him?
I'm going to try.
Yeah, Bud. Look, there you go.
Am I unmuted now?
There you go, Bud. We can hear you.
I must not have clicked it. I have moved since the last meeting I attended. I have a different mailing address, but which you folks have at the organization. I also I've had a bad surprise in that I have lung cancer stage 4, which I got as a bad surprise in having a chest x-ray and wasn't expecting it. So I'm in hospice care at this new location. I have the same phone number I've always had. I have the same email that I've always had. So, and now I've got apparently capability to be on Zoom, which Champ has helped me get on board, so I can see all of you folks and I can hear you. So I don't know, now I think you ought to be able to hear me since I've unmuted myself. So I'll leave it at that point. So.
No problem. Listen, Bud, our thoughts and prayers with you. And again, so sorry for the loss of your wife also.
She died a couple of weeks ago, had a heart attack, and she went out very, very easily. And it was a surprise to us because I thought that I would be the first one leaving her as a widow, but it didn't happen that way. So. Anyway, here we are, and we're getting along fairly well at this new location that I'm living at.
I understand. Well, if since we have that, if you wouldn't mind, Nicole or Champ, would you type that into the chat box so folks that would like to reach out to Bud can? I appreciate that. Our next item on the agenda is the RRTPO updates, and this is Chet.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, thanks, Nicole. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things that were included in the agenda packet. The Technical Advisory Committee and the Policy Board have met in October, and this is a brief update on the things that they discussed. The Commonwealth Transportation Board and specifically the Office of Intermodal Planning and Investment. Some people have heard it referred to as OIP, came and gave an update on their VTrans prioritization process. And right now they're looking at midterm needs, and midterm is referring to time frame. So there's information contained in your packet about what that presentation entailed, and as well as a link to the presentation itself. We are also working on an update to the RSTP and CMAC grant program and the schedule for that for FY22 to 27. There is information in there in the agenda packet, as well as updates on the Smart Scale Round 4 process. All of the applications, both local and regional, have been submitted, and VDOT is reviewing those now for concurrence and to make sure that they're complete. We expect to have news on Smart Scale awards later in the spring or early summer of 2021. So I think that that's something that we're all eagerly awaiting and hopeful for. We're going to have an update on the I-95 Commerce Corridor Access Study later on the agenda, so I will skip over that. There was a presentation given by Barb Nelson, Vice President at the Port of Virginia, on October 13th. There's a link in the packet to that. It was very informative and gave a great update on the work that the port is undergoing right now, especially in terms of the Richmond Marine Terminal here in our region. Let's go to the next item, Nicole. I think the big thing right now that the policy board is discussing is an expansion of the MPO study area. For those who have been part of the group for a while, you know that we have 4 jurisdictions in our region that are considered regional, or that are considered rural in reference. And that's because the MPO only extends halfway across their geographic area. Those counties are Goochland, Powhatan, New Kent, and Charles City. And Powhatan County asked that the policy board consider expansion of the MPO study area to cover all 4 of those jurisdictions in full. And that really opens up some other grant opportunities, most namely RSTP funding for Goochland, Powhatan, New Kent, and Charles City. So the TAC has discussed the possibility of expanding the boundary and has made a recommendation for the policy board's December meeting that the policy board start that process and begin conversations with VDOT and Federal Highways on how to make that change. So there's fairly broad support for those boundary updates, and I think that that's something that should move forward unless we see any major red flags from our state and federal partners. And then current work efforts update was in your agenda packet as well. Nicole has that on the screen. There's lots of great updates, and you'll hear some of those today further on under new business. That's it for the update, Mr. Chair. I'd be happy to take any questions if folks wanted to highlight anything in particular that was in the agenda.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
John Easter. Chet, is there you made reference to expansion of the MPO study area. Is there a difference between the study area and the limits of the MPO itself? No,
it's exactly the same thing. The enabling legislation in the Code of Federal Regulations refers to it as the Metropolitan Planning Study Area. So that's why I made that reference. Okay. Yeah, thanks, John. That's a good clarification.
Thank you.
Okay. No other comments or questions? We're moving on to B. We have Noah Goodall that's going to give us an update on connected and autonomous vehicles. Or autonomous, if I'm saying it correctly.
Go with automated. That's the easier one there.
Yeah.
Great. Can I just go ahead and share my screen then? Let's see.
Yes, you should just be able to share.
Gotcha. Okay. Go ahead and do the full desktop. Okay. Is that working there?
Yes, it is.
Great, great. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for having me. So get this thing running. There we go. Okay. Yeah, I'll be talking about some of the recent connected automated vehicle work going on in Virginia. There's a lot going on. I just had to focus on a project that's taken up a lot of my time recently, which is automated shuttles in Virginia. And so what is an automated shuttle? This would be a low speed, like people mover, essentially. It's a very small bus. It's about 6 yards, no, sorry, 6 feet wide, a little bit longer lengthwise. These are generally electric, generally very low speed. They top out around 15 miles an hour. They almost always have a chauffeur in there. They call it an operator or a chauffeur. There's someone on staff who's needs to be in the vehicle just to watch it, and they could step in as needed. But these will run in generally private streets. You'll see them in parking lots. You'll see them in on private facilities. A few major cities have them. They're not like an automated vehicle. Like if you've seen video of Google or Waymo's automated taxi in Phoenix that's been running, it's not like that. They're not running on like real streets at real speed. You would never mistake them for an actual car. They're very, very slow. They can't just navigate wherever they want. They're following a very strict path. They kind of map the route. The best way to describe it is like a trolley. It's almost following kind of digital tracks. So it's a very strict path. Any issues with that path, it can't just kind of go around an obstacle. The operator would have to step in and kind of take control. So just following this path. If something gets in his way, it stops. It's sophisticated, but it's not millions of dollars of investment level sophisticated. These are kind of small companies that are doing these. The one we worked with mostly is this company called Easy Mile. They're out of France. Just not a big company. The technology is not as advanced as say like GM or Google. But they are real kind of real deployments you can do of this kind of technology that work fairly well, and they're available for sale. You can put them out there today. So it also needs a lot of help. These things can't really operate. You can't just drop it down somewhere and have it work. They have to map the route for a few weeks ahead of time. They also need what we call differential GPS. So what that means if you actually use GPS, you just stand in one spot and watch your GPS. You're actually moving around all the time. It's not super accurate. It'll move you a few meters in each direction every second or so. The nice thing is all that GPS error is the same. It's the same error for me and the same error for you if you're standing right next to me. So what differential GPS does is you put a GPS fixed GPS unit somewhere nearby where you know exactly where it is. And then you basically look at the error that thing is getting. So it says it's here, but it's actually 3 feet to the right. When the shuttle will make the same adjustment and say, oh, I'm 3 feet to the right, let's shift everything left. It'll just make that adjustment over and over again. And so you can get centimeter level accuracy with that. The shuttle also needs lane markings. It's using the lane markings. It's scanning and looking for that. And that's how it knows kind of where it is and what to follow. It also needs waypoints on the side. The way the shuttles figure out where they are is they're using laser scanners to look out in front, and they're looking for just all kinds of objects. So they say, okay, I'm 50 feet from this tree, and I'm 20 feet from this sign, and I'm like 10 feet from the curb. Let's triangulate. Okay, I must be right here. When it doesn't have enough things to triangulate off, you have to add things in. So if there's no buildings nearby or no trees, you have to actually install signs. The sign can be blank. All it's doing is helping the shuttle localize and stuff, understand where it is in the world. Here are some deployments that have gone on in the US. Now this is accurate as of 2 years ago. So there's been a bunch more since then, but this is the last time they did a big report of everything. And these are just various shuttles that have been deployed around. Some of the bigger ones were Las Vegas made the news. I'll talk about that one later. City of Arlington in Texas. This was serving, I believe, the Cowboys Stadium. Another big one was University of Michigan did a pretty big analysis of these things. So you can tell that these are small deployments. They're like one shuttle, maybe two. The biggest one was in Massachusetts. They had 5 shuttles. Detroit had 5. So very small deployments. And what you also notice is a lot of these are on private streets, or they're on very simple city streets, like really low speed roads that are very straightforward. And the vehicles only make right turns, So they're trying to really limit the environment, the complexity of the environment they have to deal with. In Virginia that I'm aware of, there have been 5 deployments. So there's one in Crozet that I believe I'm not sure if that's still going, but that had been going on for a while. There was one in Virginia Tech at Blacksburg, and that I believe has ceased. One in Reston, again, which I'm not sure the status of that either. VDOT did not have a big role on those. VDOT has been supporting two. First one was the Joint Base Henderson Hall in Arlington. That's the base that serves Arlington National Cemetery. They had a shuttle running around the base. So that was phase one. It was, you had to get on the base to ride it. So ridership was pretty low. It was mostly a proof of concept. And I'll talk about that in a second. The second one that VDOT's been supporting is called Relay. And that's a joint partnership between Fairfax County and Dominion Energy that runs in the Dunn-Loring Metro. So we'll talk about the Joint Base Myers-Henderson Hall. This is what the shuttle looked like. The manufacturer was called Ollie, and it was operated by Local Motors. It was phase one, so just rode on the base. The issues they experienced there were a lot of tailgating and a lot of aggressive driving. This thing is slow. Cars would try to pass it, maybe where it shouldn't. There's a double yellow line. It's a little concerning because this was on a base, so it's only soldiers and Marines who are interacting with this thing. You'd think would be under pretty tight orders. And so if you have progressive driving there, you're probably going to have it elsewhere. So that's always something to look out for with these. But this is all, this was about a year or two ago, so it's all pre-COVID. This is since ended. They're planning phase two, where this would actually run on public roads, drive out of the base and go to connect to the Pentagon, which is much trickier. There's a couple sections of Columbia Pike there that are really complex. So that is currently in planning. The one I'm going to talk about the most today is Fairfax County's project. This is, it's been branded Relay. So it's the vehicle is called the EZ10. It's I think generation 3. It's manufactured by this company called Easy Mile. They make the shuttle. They're out of France. They make it. They have to ship it to the U.S. And they kind of operate it from a technical perspective. They kind of monitor the software. They'll put patches in over the air. They kind of keep track of it. Day-to-day operation is actually by a local company, Transdev. They actually supply the operators, and so the two of them work together. I believe it holds about 10 passengers generally, but because of COVID restrictions, we're putting a 3-passenger limit. So 3 passengers and then the operator. So very, very minimal capacity right here. Services between the Mosaic District and the Dunn-Loring Metro. Hours of operation are very limited, and this is because we want to keep it away from high traffic periods because it's slow and it kind of blocks traffic a good bit. So it runs 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Monday through Thursday. It does not, the 10 a.m. was to avoid the morning rush. The 2 p.m. was to avoid, there's a school nearby. NHTSA wanted to make sure that the vehicle was not around school children. So it has to stop at 2 p.m. And it runs a 2.3 mile loop with 2 stops. It started operating a few weeks ago, October 22nd. Here's the map of the area. If you're familiar with Fairfax County, this is the Mosaic shopping district down here at the bottom. There's a movie theater and a mixed-use development down there. It circles that route, then heads north on Eskridge Road, crosses US 29, which is a fairly large intersection. That's what makes this project really unique. Continues up Merrily Drive past the Home Depot, up here about a mile distance, then connects into the Dunn-Loring Metro. It's the second to last stop on the Orange Line. Just serves that. Takes about half an hour to go round trip, so it can do about 2 trips an hour. Storage is in the Mosaic District in a parking garage there. So that's the route. Oh, it's the stops. I'm sorry. The stops are one station's here. I believe that's in front of the Barnes & Noble. And the other stop is up at the Dunn-Loring Metro. VDOT's role in this was twofold. Well, a few things. The main thing VDOT did was help with the traffic signal. It has to cross 2 traffic signals, one at Prosperity Boulevard near the Dunn-Loring Metro, the other one at US 29. Here's what makes this shuttle really unique. Most of these shuttles do not cross signalized intersections for a few reasons. They're hard, and then you have a lot of cross traffic. There's some risk there. And generally, these shuttles are kept on very simple streets. So this was ambitious. Here's where the problem comes in. The shuttle's top speed is 12 miles an hour when it crosses the intersection. So to cross Lee Highway, US 29, that's going to take about 17 seconds at that speed. The red and yellow clearance time is only 6 seconds. So if you enter that intersection right as it turns yellow, you're going to be hanging out across a red light for 11 seconds as you get across. So that we can't have that. Okay, so the vehicle needs 11 seconds of green before it even enters the intersection. Well, how do you guarantee it's going to have that amount of green time? Here's what we did. We took technology called transit signal priority, which most of you are probably familiar with. If you're not, it's something that we use with buses that are running along a corridor that allows the bus to actually request a little extra green time as it's approaching a signal. So that way it doesn't get caught at a yellow light. And this way the bus can stay on schedule. That's generally how it's used. We are using it very differently here in that this is a shuttle coming along the side street, and we're asking, instead of 5 seconds of green time, like it normally would request, it's actually requesting 15 seconds. So the shuttle comes up, it sends a signal to the traffic light, I need 15 seconds of green, and that way I have enough time to get across. The problem with transit signal priority, it was only meant to do a one-way request. The vehicle requests to the light. If you don't get it, no big deal. In our case, we really need to know if we got that request granted or not, so we know if the vehicle can enter the intersection. We don't want to miss request, have it get in the intersection, and all of a sudden, oh no, it's stuck. So the signal actually has to transmit back, yes, I got your request, you have 15 seconds of green. To do that is much more complicated. It's a technology called Dedicated Short Range Communications, DSRC. And that is a frequency of radio band that's dedicated for transportation. The signal can actually send back confirmation that it has 15 seconds. So it's a simple problem with a simple solution that's actually much more complicated to do in real life. A lot of the technicians had to work on this to get this working. So it's a very innovative solution there. Some of the other things VDOT's helped with were much more low tech. First of all, pavement markings had to be restriped. The vehicle needs really clear pavement markings to navigate. We had to put up additional warning and regulatory signage so that other vehicles in the area are aware that there's a slow moving shuttle and it might stop all of a sudden, and try not to just give it a little bit of space. We also had to do a lot of tree trimming. VDOT did our own, but I know the other stakeholders had a substantial tree trimming. I think the tree trimming budget on this entire project came out to over $30,000. The shuttle trees swaying in the breeze really confuse it. It thinks it's a person or it thinks it's some kind of object that might be a threat, and it'll stop. So you have to get all the trees pretty far back out of the way. Grass trimming the same. Any excessively long grass or weeds are going to confuse the shuttle. So we had to get those under control. Just to emphasize the multi-agency effort involved with this. Here's all the agencies that touch this thing. Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transit funded it. Easy Mile is a manufacturer. Transdev, shuttle operator. Fairfax County is doing a lot of operation. VDOT, VTRC, the Transportation Research Council, which I'm a part of, doing research support. 2 universities. Edens is a private company that owns the Mosaic Shopping Center. So a lot of the roads the shuttle runs on belong to them. So they were big players. And then WMATA, who owns some of the roads on the Dunloring site. So multi-jurisdictional. Not only, these are the players that were in all the meetings, we also had other players that had regulatory oversight that we had to work with. The things you don't think about. Department of Motor Vehicles, we had to register the shuttle. It's a little confusing because the shuttle is not a standard vehicle, so that got a little complicated. Virginia State Police had to do a safety inspection, and it's difficult for this because the shuttle is not a federally compliant vehicle. So it has things other vehicles don't have, and it doesn't have things that other vehicles do have. So a standard safety inspection won't work. You need to do a kind of a special one-off inspection. Local jurisdictions had to help out with marking signs and signals. Those are all regulated. And then the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration had a pretty big role in this. The vehicle does not meet federal motor vehicle safety standards, so it's non-compliant. So you have to get an exemption. It also needs to be imported into the country, so that's another exemption. And then NHTSA continually monitors the vehicle. They want to know any issues. If there's a crash, if there's a sudden stop or something like that, they can pull operation until they are sure it's safe again. So they're very closely monitoring these things. And just to reemphasize how complicated this route is, it looks simple, it's a straight shot, but the jurisdiction changes about 4 or 5 times over the course of the route, which makes any changes or planning you do very complicated. Down here, the lower section's all owned by Mosaic. This section here is owned by a different developer. Then VDOT takes over the signal, VDOT controls the signal, but then immediately north of the signal is kind of an unknown area. It's like a gray area. We think the county owns it, but it's not totally clear. So the county's been doing maintenance. VDOT owns north of that. And then again, as you get closer to Dunloring, it's actually a second private developer owns that. So we needed tree trimming up there. We had to work with them. And then WMATA owns the north side. Again, just to emphasize how complicated, normally when these things are deployed, it's on, the city of Las Vegas owns all the streets. And this one, that was not the case. But we really wanted to connect to that metro station to have the shuttle serve as a last mile solution. So made it more complicated. For next steps, the shuttle is going to operate for a year. You can go ride it right now if you want. It's operational. Virginia Tech Transportation Institute is under contract to study the performance of the shuttle. They outfitted the shuttle with cameras that face in front, that face behind, and that also face into the shuttle. So you can see what the operator is doing, what the passengers are doing. It's recording kinematic data, so it's getting acceleration in all directions and speed. So any kind of unusual stops or swaying, it's gonna any swerving, it's gonna record that and record a video around that. So we'll have some evidence of what happened. They do offline analysis, so we'll have a nice, clear understanding of kind of what kind of issues the shuttle is running into and how the other cars are reacting to it, how the shuttle reacts to like pedestrians, cyclists, things like that. George Mason's conducting rider surveys, and then my agency, the Research Council, is looking at regulatory challenges that were faced, institutional issues, and lessons learned. The reason we're doing that, a lot of localities are looking at deploying shuttles like this in the next few years, and they just come with a weird set of challenges. And so we really wanted to document that, as this is one of the more complex efforts deploying one of these, just to look at kind of, here's some things you're gonna have to deal with that you might not have thought of, like tree trimming. Like, who thought that was gonna be the bulk of your budget? Okay, so we're kind of giving you a heads up on what you're gonna deal with. As far as some challenges, if you're a DOT or municipality looking to implement one of these at a high level, when you're selecting your vehicle, the vehicle you select has a big deal. Has a big impact on what your regulatory hurdles you're going to face. If the vehicle was made in the U.S. and it has standard controls like a steering wheel and brakes, then it's FMVSS compliant and you don't need a NHTSA waiver. And that's a huge, it simplifies things substantially. If it's made abroad with non-standard controls like the Easy Mile shuttle was, then you need a NHTSA waiver. So that kind of adds a lot of time. These things operate at very low speeds, so that's something to keep in mind. So you're operating on more complicated streets, and then manual controls vary widely. Some manufacturers under manual control, they can go 25 miles an hour. So when you come to a jam, you almost want to go in manual control. With the Easy Mile shuttle, if you're in manual control, the top speed is 3 miles an hour. So it's extremely slow under manual control. So manual control is not really helpful to get you around certain things. It's helpful if you're really stuck and you need to do it for a second. But if you're trying to say make a left turn, that's difficult for a shuttle. Manual control is not helpful. So you have to watch out for that. And then the shuttle is just interesting. Like you think it's computer controlled, it's going to be better than us, and it's better than humans in certain things. It's really good at staying in the direct middle of a lane, but it's very bad at other things. So something like an unprotected left turn against traffic, that's really hard for a shuttle to do. It's hard for it to see very far. It can't see things that are hidden. It just has trouble making sense of the world. So unprotected left turns, you almost want the operator to kind of confirm that it's clear before the shuttle starts moving. So they have to work together. These also get a lot of attention from the media and regulators, like much more than a typical transportation project. Just to give you one example of what can happen. This is in Las Vegas. There was a shuttle had a minor crash on its first day and actually triggered an NTSB investigation, which is a pretty big deal to have the NTSB come out and look at your issue. And when you see how small this crash was, it's almost mind-blowing. This is the shuttle was operating on its first day. It was going on a back alley, and a large tractor trailer was backing up to it and just didn't see it. The impact was so minor that this vehicle sensors almost didn't pick it up. The vehicle was outfitted with cameras that would record in the event of a crash. The crash was so small that didn't trigger the cameras recording. What did was the passengers inside the shuttle were kind of banging on the window to try to get the driver's attention, and that shaking was what started the recording. So that's the damage to the shuttle, the damage to the truck. They had to really zoom in there because it just kind of damaged the wheel of it. This is an extremely small crash, but still got a lot of attention. What was interesting about this one was the controller. This is a different manufacturer than was used in ours. This is Navia, but I thought it was interesting. In the report, they showed their backup controller. It might look familiar if you have teenage kids. It's an Xbox controller is what they used when they had to take manual control. So on that fun note, just to give you some more information, Relay's website, fairfaxcounty.gov, hosting it. My email if you have any questions. A link to some media coverage. And then I have a video of a crossing US 29, which I'll show you all very briefly here. Just to give you an idea of what kind of speed this thing operates at. So let me back it up here. So I actually shot this on the first day of operation. So here's the shuttle kind of approaching the intersection. And you can see like the caution with which it speeds up. So it's already giving a pretty large gap to the vehicle in front. And here we are moving through. Now, normally this light would turn red by now, but the vehicle had requested 15 seconds of additional green. You can see it's got slowly crossing through the intersection there. And then and as soon as it gets through, you know, the green time expires, it'll turn yellow, and there it is. So that's it. All right. Let me pause that now. Okay, well, thank you all very much. If you have any questions, if there's time, I'll take them now. Otherwise, you can send me an email.
Anyone have any questions for Noah right this moment?
Noah, what situations would these shuttles be useful? And we'd want to deploy them? Are specifically access to transit stations, like the example that you provided, or are there other situations or types of travelers that you would be anticipated to use these more than others?
I feel like at this stage, like there's no real advantage to this over a typical bus if you're trying to actually move people. It's because they're slower, they're more expensive, and there's just more problems. So there's no real benefit here. The benefit is that they're interesting and new, and we're still learning about them. So if you're if it's like a tourist location, you're trying to like generate some buzz. If you just want to demo some new technology, it's great for that. But as far as like an actual transit service, I feel like the disadvantages are pretty substantial right now. So I would, if your goal is really moving people around, I would go with a traditional bus every time. Yeah, I don't see a big advantage. This is my honest opinion.
Okay, folks. Well, our next presenter is, and I've had Mr. Arral. He's going to do Connect RVA 2045 update.
Thank you. Let me just share my screen. Yeah, can everybody see my screen now? Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, great. Thanks.
If we're looking at a rock outcropping, we can see your screen.
But you don't see any slides, right?
No. Correct.
Oh, okay, this is.
There we go.
Okay, great. So I'm going to update CTAC about the Connect RVA 2045 Long Range Transportation Plan. The last update I provided was on, I guess, on May. And just to refresh everybody's memory, Connect RVA 2045 is the Long Range Transportation Plan, which is a federally mandated plan, which we have to do every 4 to 5 years. The plan is the vision for next 20 years of transportation improvements in the Richmond region. It includes a constrained list of projects based on financial estimates for 2045, which comes from VDOT as well as DRPT. So we'll have that budget as well. This plan would be the first performance-based plan as mandated by MAP 21 and FAST Act, meaning that the LRTP will systematically review the transportation system performances to define the region's investment strategies. The LRTP Advisory Committee is spearheaded by, the LRTP is spearheaded by the LRTP Advisory Committee, which consists of all our TAC members. We do have some CTAC members as well serving that committee. Apart from that, we have other agencies serving us, like the Virginia Asian Chamber of Commerce, Bike Walk RVA, as well as RVA Rapid Transit. So just to go over the LRTP process flow, We have 6 phase or 6 major tasks within this process. The first phase or the process is to get the transportation needs assessment, to look at our transportation networks, all modes, including highway, transit, active transportation, freight, etc., and come up with the system-wide deficiencies or spot deficiencies. That's what we do in the transportation needs assessment. The second part is the strategic direction, in which we establish the vision statement for the plan, the goals and objectives, as well as the performance measures through which we will prioritize our projects towards the end. The third phase is planning, in which we take the needs which we established in phase 1 or task 1, and then develop project solutions for those. And then the final outcome of this process would be a universe of projects, in which we'll have all reasonably significant projects in the Richmond region listed out. The fourth phase obviously is programming, in which we look at the actual budget which we have based on VDOT as well as DRPT's financial projections till 2045. And then based on that, we prioritize the project and then develop the constrained list of projects. The fifth phase is evaluation. Since this is a performance-based plan, we have to evaluate certain things, things like equity, the environmental justice assessment, the accessibility, the change in accessibility before and after the fact of plan implementation, as well as performance measures of the region as a transportation network, and public participation in general. How did we do in public participation? And the final, obviously, after all this has been done, we go for adoption. There has been a general public outreach process throughout this process, and I'll talk about some of the important ones which we had later. So the first step, I think I described that in our May meeting, but I'll give a recap. So we identified regional and local multimodal transportation issues based on congestion. We looked at the safety issues, a lack of interconnectivity, any operational problems, maintenance issues, inadequate capacity, either in roadway or transit, expanding transit, accessibility, as well as other issues like travel demand management and economic development. And based on that, we created a list of issues, almost more than 1,000 issues, and that was adopted by the LRTP Advisory Committee in the May meeting. I'll jump to planning directly after the needs assessment and come back to strategic direction later on, because these two are directly related in process flow. So as I mentioned earlier, once we had the list of issues, the next logical occurrence was to develop the projects based on those issues. But before that, we had to establish something which we are calling as the project inclusion guidelines, to distinguish between projects which are regional in nature, as well as those projects might be called programmatic and local projects. So we only want to include projects in the long range transportation plan which has a bigger magnitude. In other words, it has to have some kind of regional nature in that. And we developed inclusion guidelines based on different modes and project types, and that was approved by the LRTP Advisory Committee. Staff then started to process the screening of transportation projects based on transportation plans and studies like STARS and IJRs and IAMRs. So if those studies had any project solutions for the certain issues which we had identified, we listed out those projects. There are still a lot of issues which came out from just analysis rather than any specific studies, like the congestion management process, which the MPO does, or the travel demand model runs to look at future capacity related needs. Those didn't have any projects. So staff is working with project champions to develop the projects. So project champions are basically, you can assume them as project applicants, mainly the localities and VDOT and GRTC. So staff is working with the champions to develop projects within the champions area of expertise or the so the final objective of this is to create a streamlined list of transportation projects for all transportation modes. And as I mentioned earlier, we'll call this the universe of project. We are still working with the champions to work things out. And based on the latest schedule, I guess we might be able to finalize this list by the end of this year. So we are still working on it. I would say like 50–60% of work has been done, but still needs to be done by the end of this year. Let's come back to the second task, which is the strategic direction. So the main objective of this task is to develop vision and goals for the long-range transportation plan, and also to develop objectives within each goals and performance measures, which could measure each objectives. So that we are all in the same page. I just wanted to give a brief working definition which we have used. So the vision statement will describe Richmond Region's transportation's aspiration in a concise manner, focus on what is important, and provide a foundation for all aspects of the plan. The goals will describe a series of desired end states for the region's transportation system, which would be informed by the vision, and the goal will provide foundation for objectives and the measure. There are some federal requirements for the goals, that it has to address 10 federal planning factors, which came out from the FAST Act, and also has to address the 7 goals from MAP 21. The objectives basically will describe specific measurable statements that would support the achievement of the goals as well as the vision in general. And then finally, the performance measures would provide the technical mechanism or data which will be helpful for us to monitor progress towards the objectives, goals, and vision in general. So the framework was that we introduced this to the LRTP Advisory Committee, and then we did a series of public engagement, vision input, regional goals and priorities surveys, vision goals and strategy survey. And I'll come to these in detail in next few slides. After that was done, staff synthesized of the survey and developed vision goals and objectives based on the public input. And then based what staff synthesized, that was presented for the LRTP Advisory Committee. And we had an interactive session with the LRTP Advisory Committee to further modify those. And that was again provided for the LRTP Advisory Committee. Excuse me. For their comments, and we have received some comments. So at this time, we have received comments from the LRTP Advisory Committee, and we will present this to the RRTPO Policy Board in the December meeting. So that would be the first time they'll have a look on it. And at the same time, we'll ask them to open a 15-day formal public review period of the goals, visions, and objectives. So once that formal public review period is ended, based on any comments and concerns we get from the public, that would be accommodated to those goals and objectives, and it'll come back to the LRTP Advisory Committee for their approval, and then subsequently we'll go to the Policy Board for their approval. So these are the examples, some of the surveys we conducted. First of all, we conducted a vision survey. We asked the people to tell about their transportation vision in the Richmond region in 1 or 2 words. So we can see that some of the words which are highlighted, which are thick and big, are the ones which had more hits. We can see equitable, green, carbon-free, multimodal, safe, connected. So those were the major buzzwords we got. Secondly, we had a regional goals and priorities survey, which was based on Google Forms. It went live around June 24th and was closed on August 15th. So was basically a little more than 45 days. We had a tremendous success in the number of views, 6,857 views, 3 likes, and 501 completed surveys. So if you look at the map, this map shows the number of respondents from their home location, and we can see that the respondents have come from throughout the region. Only a few zip codes, this data is by zip codes, only a few zip codes in, let's say, Western Hanover County and maybe Eastern Goochland haven't been represented, but mostly it has been represented by people throughout the throughout the region. The other thing was this survey was a little bit more biased towards the city because we had 40% of the respondents living in the city. Based on the results, we had asked them about the goals and priorities, and these are the transportation priorities ranked. Safety is ranked highest in our region. In the scale of 1 to 5, it scored 4.4, followed by environmental quality, accessibility, land use, economic development, and congestion is based on the survey, the congestion mitigation is the least important factor in the Richmond region. As we know that we don't have much congestion in the region. It's only towards the peak periods that we have maybe 15 or 20 minutes of congestions in some of our bottleneck areas. Then after that, we had the vision, goals, and strategies survey. This was based on the MetroQuest format. It went live around August 25th, and we had, again, almost 45 days, more than 45 days for this survey. And we had a tremendous success in the survey as well. We had 949 completed surveys. Again, looking at the respondents, it came out from people living throughout the region. Obviously, the darker areas, which is basically the city as well as the central surrounding suburbs, it has a more dense population. So as expected, more people from those areas have responded to these surveys. And again, looking at the goals ranking, safety again came first, followed by health and equity, connectivity, accessibility, which both of them can be categorized in same category. Then environmental, economic vitality, maintenance operations, that also had congestion in it, is again scoring less. And then finally, system resiliency, that has scored the list in this goal ranking. So based on all those surveys, all the feedback we had, the advisory committee as well as the public vision buzzwords, 501 completed surveys from the regional priorities survey, 949 completed survey from vision and goals survey, as well as the issue wiki map, which we used to identify issues earlier on. And then 265 unique ideas for vision statements. This was all processed by staff, and based on the staff expertise, we developed vision goals, objective and performance measures for this plan. And this went to the LRTP advisory committee for the input. As I mentioned earlier, we had a very good interactive session in which we actually divided the group into 3 rooms, and everybody had a chance to speak on that. Based on all those interactive sessions as well as the comments we received afterwards, staff came up with this vision. So the vision statement for the Richmond region would be: the transportation in the Richmond region will be reliably connect people, prioritize interconnected opportunities for all to thrive and live healthy lives, promote economic development, respect environmental stewardship, and support an exceptional quality of life. So that's the vision statement we came up with. This would be presented to our policy board, and then this will go out for the public comment, 15-day formal public review period as well. Similarly, we established the guiding principles as kind of bridge between vision and goals. So we established 7 guiding principles: safe, well-maintained and interconnected transportation system, choice among all travel options so that we don't have bias in one mode or another. So all transportation modes, passenger, vehicle, truck, rail, bars in our ports, air traffic, van pooling, carpooling, transit, bike ped, as well as the new systems like scooters and segways, which are micromobility, have been included. Prioritize completion of regional bicycle and pedestrian network for the benefit of individual and community health. Transit network, which delivers comprehensive, effective service, including areas of greatest need and key destinations. Equity is an important factor in this plan. Equity and inclusion in all transportation spending decisions in the region. We focus on historically disregarded communities. Freight is also something which we have to address. So this plan is not just for the movement of people. It should address the movement of freight as well. So that's why efficient movement of goods across the transportation system. And then finally, alignment of transportation investment to land use, community health, and environmental stewardship. So this is what the guiding principles we came up with based on all those information. So this is a 2-page summary of vision, guiding principles, goals, and objectives within these goals. And as I mentioned earlier, each goal would be measured through performance measures. We have 2 sets of performance measures. One is the federal performance measure, which has been established by FHWA. So that's something which we have to do anyhow. There's no say on us or change any of these federal performance measures. The other one is the project selection performance measures, and staff is still developing on it. We haven't had an opportunity to talk in detail with the LRTP Advisory Committee. That would be discussed in our next meeting, which is in December. So that's why the performance measures have been grayed out, because those haven't been finalized yet. But goals, we have 5 goals, and within each goals we have objectives. So basically the goals, as we saw in the priorities as well as goal rankings, we have accommodated all those goals. So safety is basically improving the safety of transportation system for all people. And then we have environmental and land use both tagged together. So basically reducing the negative impact of transportation system in built and natural environment. And then we have a few objectives to measure, which are measurable statements to measure these goals. The other goal is equity and accessibility. Basically improve accessibility and more choice for all people. And in objective, you can see that we have obviously the accessibility should improve for all population, but specifically targeted for the historically disadvantaged communities, or what we call as environmental justice population. So that has a separate objective within this goal. And then obviously economic development, improve connectivity and mobility for strong economic vitality. And then mobility, which is basically congestion or reliability, and as well as maintenance, increase travel efficiency and more choice, and maintain the transportation system in a state of good repair. So that's all I have today. This will go to the policy board, and then we'll come back for the public comment. So if you have any comments on these goal visions or guiding principle objectives, I think that would be the right moment to comment on this. We have a list of interested parties, and once the policy board opens the public comment period, we'll open this and send an email to all interested party. So that's all I have. We have good information in our website. www.connectrva2045.org. We have all the presentations, all the meetings. Since all the meetings now are virtual, they have been recorded, and we have the link in that website as well as tons of other resources, data, and we'll be continuously updating that as well. So yeah, if you have time, just visit that website. And if you have any other questions in general, or you just contact myself as well as Chet. Apart from that, if you have any immediate questions, I'll be happy to answer those. Thank you.
All right, folks. Hearing no immediate questions, as you can see on your screen right there is either chat or Mr. Aria's email, if you've got something that you'd like to send out to him. Hearing none right this moment, I think we move on to number 3. We're going to have a report on complete streets, guidance, and toolbox with Sarah Rosmus.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm going to go over this complete streets story map that I'm sure all of you are very well aware of. And I think each of you have had kind of a hand in working on this project. So first of all, just a quick introduction. What complete streets are. They're supposed to be for creating a more inclusive community for every passenger, regardless of their mode of transportation. So we did a lot of this background research, and we based a lot of our project on the Ashland. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. Let me show you this data first. So the part of the reason we're doing this complete streets project is to eliminate crash and injuries to pedestrians and bicyclists. And when you guys get the link to this story map, you can play around with this map here. If you click on any point, it'll tell you what kind of injury happened, if it was a fatality, the conditions of the road. We have a map for both pedestrian and cyclist accidents and crashes. So this is just interesting data to look at. As you can see in these two charts, pedestrian injuries and fatalities have actually gone down. But if you scroll down a little bit further to see the bicyclists, it's actually fatalities and injuries have gone up a little bit. So a lot of these points will show you exactly what conditions we're under. Most of the trend we've seen is that there's a lot of low light conditions that have caused a lot of these accidents. So either dusk when it gets dark, or poor man-made light. So moving on to our actual pilot project, which is Ashland. And we worked with Ashland because they kind of have a unique situation down there. They have a lot of infrastructure that kind of lends itself to complete streets. It's like a smaller town. They were also looking to do something like this to adopt a complete streets policy for their upcoming transportation plan. So there's just some background information about Ashland. Our recommendations for that, we have actually a larger, more in-depth report that is completed that has, goes into details on all of our recommendations. So I'm going to skip a little bit. I'm going to go down to COVID-19. So as we all know, we're in a pandemic. So this kind of affects how our streets operate. So Ashland, again, did this really awesome little experiment where they did open streets for their kind of downtown area. They called it a parking to patio initiative, where they tried out some blocking off some streets to car traffic and increasing pedestrian and store frontage areas. So a lot of people could dine outside. As far as I know, this was really successful. A lot of people used it. I don't know how this is going to change with the colder weather, so we'll see what happens. This was over the summer and was utilized very well. So I'm going to skip down to our regional toolkit because this is like the nitty gritty of what everyone wants to look at. So this section provides a lot of ideas and suggestions for our regional connections for our regional complete streets projects. So if you scroll through all of this, there's a lot of, it goes through each aspect of complete streets that makes streets more accessible for everyone. So a lot of stuff about buses, mixed modes, parking, how streets are laid out. But the good stuff, I think, I'm a little biased, is down here with bicycle infrastructure. And as Barb will actually talk about a little bit, we have a lot of bicycle infrastructure suggestions for proper lanes, ways to increase comfort in a bike situation, how to adapt streets into utilizing types of bike lanes. So we kind of have all of that in here. I use this awesome tool called Street Mix, where you can kind of make your own street. We actually used a little bit of that during our workshops for the Ashland pilot project. So some of you might have been able to play around with this. But you kind of can lay out how you want your street to look. You can look at certain sizes of lanes. You can add different street elements. So that's the program I use to kind of create these mock-ups for just displaying different infrastructure types. So we'll just kind of breeze through this because each situation can adapt to a bunch of different places. We have a lot of regional examples of where things work, where things don't work, where things can be improved. And then finally, we have road reconfiguration. Some of you might know it as road diets. This is basically the nitty gritty of how complete streets are implemented. So it involves a lot of road reconfiguration, using the allowable street that you have available, but reallocating lines, reallocating curbs, installing sidewalks to make it an accessible space for all forms of transportation. So then finally, down here, we have just some resources of where we got a lot of our information. I recommend anybody who's interested in just reading or learning more about complete streets to check out these links that are included in this section. They're all really helpful and can kind of give you a good baseline of where to start to install anything and to implement anything. So yeah, so that's all I got. This link will be available to everyone. You can go around and mess and play with the maps, look at all the examples and pictures. This is obviously an ongoing project, so we might have more to add with more suggestions or different scenarios that come up. We'll probably add more to this document or to this, I guess, working document. So yeah.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Any questions for Sarah? By the way, I don't know if you're catching chat, but I have seen that Nicole, that Mike Testerman and Sarah Erickson had joined us. So please understand, I didn't know if you were looking at that. I saw it, so I wanted to make you aware. Well, we're going to move on now. We've got Ms. Jaycox, Greater RVA Transit Vision Plan, near-term strategical technical analysis. Take it away, Barbara.
Thank you very much. And I too am going to share my screen. And in the interest of time, let's see. I want to start with the current slide. Sorry. It's not coming up. There. It worked before. Hang on. Now, can you see that? Yes. Everyone? Great. Okay. Apologize for that. I was looking over this slideshow yesterday, and I saw that I last presented to you in July. And so I'm really going to start, in the interest of time, at the tail end of the slideshow, because we took this to the board, the policy board, in September. And this is really the conclusion of a year-and-a-half long study that Kimberly Horn helped us with. And several of you were involved from the very beginning. Virginia Coles and John Leonard were on our steering committee. So I didn't want to bore you with all of the background, and I want to share that with you through the story map, which has been developed since September. So the three most viable corridors for near-term implementation turned out to be Midlothian Turnpike, which connects, goes out to Chesterfield Town Center, the full extent of the Turnpike through to connect downtown to Route 1 North, which is the most likely nearest term improvement to expand it north to not quite as far as Virginia Center Commons, but to Parham Road, and have access to the community college and up that way on Brook Road. Also to the airport is most likely because of ridership and because of timing and the demand. So that was where we concluded, and we have separately identified implementation activities that would take place from henceforth in conjunction with CVTA and the study that GRTC and the TPO jointly are conducting now. This serves as a good foundational element for that continued work effort. And the policy board did pass this resolution on September 3rd. So it is an adopted plan. It's a strategic plan with a lot of background that will help set the stage for future expansion and enhancement of our existing transit. So I wanted to take you into the story map and just give you a quick overview of how you can use the story map, because it has all the background information. We found this format to be so useful, and we can have it on our website. You can scroll through it to see the background, or you can use this navigation bar at the top. And I'm just going to show you very quickly the first level of analysis when we looked at all 20 of the different enhanced 20-minute or less service routes from the original 2017 vision plan.
Hey, Barb, this is Chet. Your screen hasn't changed. It's still showing your PowerPoint.
It's still showing the PowerPoint? Oh, okay, let me go to the third screen and see. Thanks for letting me know. That's what I see on my screen. All right, let's start over. How's that? Is that the story map? No. Do you see the front? Has it changed?
Still showing PowerPoint.
Huh. This isn't gonna.
Mr. Chairman, while she's trying to solve that, can I ask Chet a question, please?
Sure.
Chet, I'm asking you rather than Barbara so she can focus on what she's doing, but I saw the mention in resolution that the policy board passed mention of 5 corridors, and yet she showed us a diagram of 3 corridors that were being focused on. Can you explain the difference between those two things?
There were 5 total corridors.
Right.
And
that's what I was hoping to show you on the story map.
Okay, then I'll just hold off then. Thank you.
Let me see if I could.
Barbara, it looks like slides 13, 14, and 15 are all disabled. If you look at the screen, you see the little slash mark that crosses through them. So
Yes.
they're not going to show in presentation mode.
But I'm really I'm on the slides after that. I'm
But
sorry.
the presentation looks like it only goes to 15.
This is, yeah, those were not, yeah, that I don't see on my, let me stop sharing and start over. Let me just start. It worked when we did the prelude to this. It's not advancing, is it? I'm sorry, it's just not coming up.
I think we can, if the link hasn't already been sent out, we can share it again with the committee.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
what
in the
I would
interest of
like to
time,
do.
It's probably just better to
Yeah,
make
I don't want to belabor this. But what it does show is there was a lot of analysis, and to arrive at those final three, there was a comparison among all three or all five of ridership potential, characterized by the demand and the land use patterns and the availability of transit. Currently, of course, just expansion, what historically has happened. So I
Or this
apologize.
is Nicole. If it's helpful,
Yes.
I can share the screens,
Okay,
the slides.
if you want to go
wanna-
to that last, to the 12, slide 12.
Can you see this one?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that the one you need, Barb?
So this is of the five. Yes, we looked at activity density, transit supportive jobs, working population, etc. Walkability. I know this is one that Virginia's particularly interested in. When we talk about walkability, it's a large measure of the cost is really the infrastructure to serve those transit stops, the sidewalks and the pedestrian accommodations, bus shelters. That's all. It's going to be a local partnership with GRTC and really implementing any of this.
Thank you, Bob.
Is there any way you could go to that slide 12? And maybe we could try you could just show the story map and navigate from there. We'll just give it one more try. You could just advance down and then show the navigation bar at the top. Don't need to go through all of it. Go right to implementation. And then you can advance from there. Thank you. You'll see the feasibility metrics and a summary of the capital costs, operation costs, and the comparison of all the assumptions, the continuum of costs, corridor benefits. So I really encourage you to take a look at this yourself if you would like to know more detail, and we'd be happy to answer questions since I've taken up so much time mechanically here. But you can see the low and high end costs and the magnitude of costs. That's where the cost comes in, Virginia, with the pedestrian accommodations, the high end. Corridor benefits, again, comparison among, and those are the five, and you'll see the three that okay, and now if we could just flip over to the next at the navigation bar to the not necessarily that, well, the next steps, you know, these are funding sources potential. And then I just wanted to share at the very end of this whole thing, the regional overview. This gives you more information on the walkability index, according to the EPA kind of index. The environmental justice population, so you start to see where the transit dependent riders are focused. The higher transit use areas. Low vehicle ownership. And then start to see them overlaid. And that is pretty much it, but it is all there for you to use as your reference tool. And I apologize again for the mechanical difficulty. I just wanted to say too about the complete streets. That was, to your credit, you all started this initiative 3 years ago, I believe. And we launched into looking at Ashland as our pilot with Smart Growth America and Michael Baker. It's still very much in the works, but it's in tandem with our bike ped regional plan that we're working on in conjunction with the long range plan. So I think we will be adding to that continually for local staffs and others to use as a helpful toolkit in moving forward with safer streets that make for a stronger economy. And that concludes both of those presentations.
Hey, thank you, Barbara. Hey, don't worry about it. Hey, technology is great when it
Well,
works.
that's what was showing on my screen. So I'm glad Chet told me.
Yeah. All right, folks,
Okay.
we're going to move on next. Chet has a report on I-95 Commerce Corridor Access Study.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had to unmute myself. I'm sharing now a screen from a plan that was adopted by the policy board. And this is a follow-up study that came from the Commerce Corridor Plan that was developed a few years ago by the TPO. And it focuses on particular access to the RMT from Commerce Corridor and I-95. This again, as you've seen the trend, this is a story map that has been developed in, I think as a supplement to the report. You should have gotten the full report as part of your agenda packet when that was sent. So this is more of a visual summary of what that report says. So we worked closely with the Port of Virginia as well as Michael Baker, a consultant that was brought on board to help shepherd this process through. And I, along with Sulab and others from the city and other players, have been part of a steering committee that's been guiding this process for roughly the last year. So it's been a fun experience, and we've been able to look at a lot of different options for the port and for improving services, not just to the existing area, but thinking about growth and expansion in the future. So just navigation for the story map. You're probably familiar with these by now, but across the top, there are headers starting with project basics, which is where we are now. It has an underline, and it goes through land use to other things, safety and congestion, different concepts, connection ideas, and next steps. So I'm going to quickly scroll through here, and I apologize for the length of time we're putting the screen in front of you today. But so what we did was we originally looked at some of the background for the port area and looking at land use classifications. Almost 65% of the study area, which on the map here is in the red outline. It's basically the area right around I-95 and the Richmond Marine Terminal. 65% of that land area is industrial land use class, with another 18% residential, and then a mix of other uses along with that. Economic numbers, there's been consistent growth at the port up through the 2020 fiscal year. We're now seeing import and export totals of over 40,000 containers a year, and it's great progress and expansion to the Richmond Marine Terminal, and we all want this to be able to continue. If we look out to the future, the long-range plan, as Sulab mentioned, we're looking out to the horizon year of 2045. If you project out the growth that the port has experienced over the past few years, we can expect in excess of 120,000 containers a year by the time we get to that horizon area. So you can imagine the conversion of truck traffic and traditional routes to get freight upriver to Richmond, really seeing a big transformation to barge and container ships as we move forward. With that being said, we have a lot of truck traffic right now, and part of the reason for this study was looking at what we can do to kind of remedy some of those situations and ease some of the congestion that's being experienced. We have data sets that are included in the study map, including crash data, and this is shown in a bunch of different categories. The blue, 67% of the severity is property damage only, but if you wanted to look at the hard numbers, 6% resulted in severe injury, and 1% was categorized as fatality. So it also shows you locations, and the way the story map is organized, you can zoom in and you can look at the exact locations where the crashes were noted. So you can see if you look along I-95, the Deepwater Terminal Road area up here at the north, there's some severe crashes there, et cetera. So I think that gives us an idea of where we are. And then you can also look at the density of crashes. So this is more of the heat map kind of effect. Most of the crashes have happened in particular locations. And if you zoom in there, you can see again, more detailed. So Bells Road along Jeff Davis, that's a major area for crashes, as well as the intersection with Walmsley, the Commerce, Bells Road along I-95. And we also have links to the sources for all this data. So VDOT resources and other databases measured into this. The next set of data is looking at travel time index. And this is one of the performance measures that the TPO uses to assess improvement over time. And it's really a measure of the ratio of free flow speed to congested speed. So the map basically shows you the thicker areas are where the travel time shows more congestion. So again, along that Bells Road, Commerce Road interchange along I-95 and the Bells Jeff Davis intersection on Route 1. What we did as part of this study was look at different solutions that could be considered over time. The idea here was to think about what kind of improvements could be made and suggested in this plan that could lead into funding applications or additional study or engineering design. And I think that the concepts that were developed were pretty significant. The first thing that the study team looked at was, if we didn't do anything, what would the conditions look like in 2045? So lots of bad conditions, congestion, traffic, maximum volumes, especially around this Walmsley, Commerce, Bells Road interchange on I-95. So the next thing we wanted to do was look at different types of improvements. The first set are short-term improvements that are fairly easily to do financially as well as physically. And the second set were more long-term improvements that take a lot more foresight and financial planning, as well as positioning of future dollars to be committed. So 7 concepts in the short-term range, and they ranged from adding an auxiliary lane on I-95 between Bells Road and Chippenham Parkway. This is easy to do. The land's already there. It's an expansion of the corridor, and we were actually able to get this this project included in the I-95 corridor study that VDOT is currently finalizing. So we're hopeful that that gets funded soon. The next 2 concepts are short-term concepts dealing with conversion of travel lanes. This is at Bells Road and Walmsley, and you can see in the story map there's diagrams showing what those changes are going to be. I'm going to roll through these, and we can come back if there's any questions at the end. Concepts 3 and 4 short-term. We're looking at additional lanes from Bells Road to Walmsley and from the Bells Road access road to Bells Road. Concepts 5 and 6, we're looking at relocating the I-95 southbound ramp. You can see in the diagram the red crosshatched area is the existing ramp, and the idea here is to reduce turning movement conflicts and reorient some of the intersection at Walmsley so that we can develop a new I-95 southbound ramp a little farther south along Commerce Road. And this would eliminate a lot of those travel conflicts that currently exist at the Commerce and Walmsley intersection. And short-term concept 7 is looking at reconfiguring the southbound off-ramp so that the merge movements that currently happen as you move into the Jeff Davis intersection would be eliminated, or at least alleviated, so that traffic that is trying to make a right turn moving north on Route 1 would be a little bit separated from traffic that is trying to merge and make either the southbound turn or a straight through. So eliminating the weaving that currently exists at that intersection. There's a handy table here with estimated construction costs, utility and right-of-way impacts, and then benefits. The darker the square, the better it is really the key here. So you can see that there's some of the short-term improvements are better than others. And the plan recommended concepts 1, 3, and 7 as the most cost-effective improvements in the short term. And I'd encourage you to obviously go back and take a look at this in more detail if you'd like. And we'd be happy to provide other information. Quickly, long-term concepts. These are kind of the fun ones because you get to see a whole lot of changes and a whole lot of things that might make an impact in the long run. Concept 1 was installing a roundabout on Commerce Road at Walmsley, and this would include short-term concept 7, where we had that elimination of the weaving movements from the I-95 southbound ramp to Commerce Road. Long-term concept 2 is moving over to the other side of I-95 on Deepwater Terminal Road and adding some easier access from 95. Say if you're traveling north on 95, you can take a new ramp that would immediately fly over to a roundabout that would give direct access to the port, rather than having to go all the way up and make the big circular movement in the north and come back down. Concept 3 is another look at that with another type of intersection. And then combinations of those concepts. So this is 1 and 3 together. And you could see how that the roundabout on Commerce Road might impact new traffic movements on the other side of 95. And then we had the final thing here is the local connector ideas. There's long been a discussion about extending Walmsley Boulevard from US 1 over to Deepwater Terminal or I-95. And that extension was brought up here as well. And there's a lot of merit to thinking about that as this area further develops. the last one is something that's very intriguing. There's an existing right of way that goes from the RMT property underneath of I-95. It's essentially a huge box culvert right now that could be utilized as another connection back to the area where the Amazon Fulfillment Center and the other industrial growth is happening along Commerce Road. If that was possible to be used as a connection for port traffic, then that would help alleviate a lot of the traffic that's currently on Deepwater Terminal and Bells Road. The next steps, again, are all of the detailed engineering, environmental studies, any NEPA process that needs to be done, preliminary plans, and then finding the money. So next steps and action items were to look at, again, the short-term concepts 1, 3, and 7, long-term concepts 1 and 3, and then the connector 2, which is the one that goes under the interstate. Policy Board took action at the November 5th meeting and adopted this study. So this is now something that the TPO can use to go out and seek additional dollars and work with the port from here on out to make the necessary changes to improve their access and provide support to freight movement in the Richmond region well into the future. Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to take any questions, or we can move on in the interest of time.
Any questions for Chet at this time?
I have one. Michael here.
Go ahead, Mike.
I'm not hearing anything about the use of rail at the port. I'm not even sure that there's any active rail service there these days. So if any information at all that you have on that?
You know, that's a great question. Barb Nelson was at the table the entire time, and we just don't hear a lot from the port about the use of rail. I think that the focus right now is on all the containers that are coming off the interstate. And I think coming out of the Commerce Corridor study a couple of years ago, it seems like that was the tidbit that was drawn from that. I mean, we would certainly love to talk more about rail, especially with the news from the state this year about the focus on north-south rail and Long Bridge and everything else. So maybe that's another focus study that could come out of this as a next step.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, question?
Is that you, Champ?
It is.
Okay, please go ahead.
Thanks. Chet, I remember a couple of years ago, we got a briefing. Gravel was a big commodity being shipped out of the port. What else? What are the primary goods besides containers that are going out of there and coming in?
Yeah, that's a great question, Champ. I think I know that there's a lot of rubber that goes out of the port, as well as agricultural products. So they do a really healthy trade in farm trucks coming in, and they've got a new tipple that's there that they use to load containers with farm product and whatever, potatoes, vegetables. I'm not sure what they actually put in the trucks, but those kinds of things are pretty healthy right now. I'm not sure about the gravel anymore. I also know that I think there's some increased interest from specialty products as some of the other associated businesses and industry develops along Commerce Road, that they're looking to utilize the port to bring their product directly to the RMT and be able to transfer quickly to their facilities. So I think that's probably a growth area.
Anyone else at this time?
Well, I have a question in chat.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Virginia.
Well, I just wondered if the RRTPO board had made any decisions about priorities or what they thought was the most economical and best way to go forward. I think Walmsley Boulevard connector between Route 1 and Commerce Road just has wonderful possibilities. And even though it might be expensive, I don't think it would be as expensive as changing the interchange. And it would free up a lot of traffic. Some traffic could go off of 95 at Chippenham and get onto Route 1 and then flip over on Walmsley Boulevard if that were open.
Yes, ma'am, that's a great point. And I think that at this point, the board just adopted the study itself last month, or this month, earlier this month. And with the recommendations that were made, and I have those on the screen, I think that based on what I've heard from Richmond 300, as well as the work that we're doing on our bicycle pedestrian plan update, the Walmsley extension makes a lot of sense to a lot of people. So I think that that's certainly an area where we can focus some efforts in the future, as well as some of these other recommendations. I mean, a lot of it's going to depend on the willingness of a project sponsor to identify it as well. And most of these at this point are going to be the city of Richmond as a sponsor for moving forward with the project. So I think that your point is well made, and we have a lot of momentum in this region right now for transportation improvements. So I think that it makes a lot of sense to keep moving these recommendations forward and start to come up with priorities.
Hey, folks, if I may, if you've got other questions, please send that to chat. And the only reason I've got about 15 minutes, I've had a hard stop at 2, so I'm just being upfront with you. Are there any CTAC announcements? Any open comment? I apologize. Could you please say your name? I can't hear you.
Oh, this is Walter Johnson. I was just, I was kind of late getting in, but I've been listening for a few minutes here. Sorry for the delay though, but just want to say I'm on the list here. I could be on the list.
Nicole will make sure to note that, so not a problem at all.
Okay.
Anybody got a suggestion for some future meeting topics? Okay, it's down to CTAC member comments. Anybody want to say anything?
Robert, there's something funny about your microphone.
Well,
we're getting feedback or something from what you're saying.
Virginia, whose microphone? I'm sorry.
Does anybody else hear this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Your microphone's
Staticky.
breaking up, Robert.
Yeah.
It's a little.
Yeah, well, that's why, because the thing is, that's why I said I have a hard stop, because it only gives us so much time to be on the thing and it goes to someone else.
I have an announcement, Bob.
Go ahead.
I would like to call attention to our new coalition that we're building through Virginia Transit Association for Virginia Faces of Transit. And if you go to our website, vatransit.com, it's on the home page, and you can click on it and see a number of different individuals who are touting the different benefits of transit. This is an effort to try to reestablish transit as a safe and necessary means of transport for work, for school, for medical services, for economic development. So there's representation from all over the state on there, including GRTC. And anyway, we're asking organizations to sign on, and there's directions on there on how to do so. So we encourage you to join us and sign on your organization, and we will continue to communicate with you and share some of these stories with some of the elected officials and others in the community going forward. So thank you.
Thanks. Okay, our next meeting is on January the 21st. So we won't see each other until next year. So to everyone, literally, I hope you have a very happy holiday season.
Be safe.
And yes, please be safe. Nicole, if you could, you can end the meeting. If I'd make a motion, we end the meeting. I'm finished.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir.
All right.